Hello. So I was gonna make another video about helpful pointers of Joseph Murphy from The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. We got through like a third of his helpful pointers. Pointers from the harmonious relations section of The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And I also realized really it would be worthwhile, and I think I don't think we're gonna actually do this, but it would probably be worthwhile for me to make videos of just the pointers at the end of each chapter of The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, like with a little bit of commentary, because there's just so much common sense there, that it just like I don't often say, but when I talk to people who have been doing this stuff for a while, and the few people who like I'm like professionally friendly with, in the law of attraction space, and there are very few people professionally that I am friendly with in the law of attraction space, but I always say, like, I feel like I'm speaking a different language when it comes to this stuff. Like, people are talking about all these, I said smoke and mirror techniques the other day, and like just all these fancy techniques, some which work, which can work in certain circumstances, I guess, right? But the way they're described in modern times, on places like this venue, YouTube, I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is so like bizarrely like esoteric, like horse shit. Like, and like someone like Neville, like as like far out as his stuff is, like there's a clarity there, right? Like a clarity to what he's saying, and that's what's impressive. And, people try to add to it, and they fucking make it just. They sound like, I've said it's like regurgitated Neville. That might be too kind. I mean, it's like they take something that's beautiful and they make it vomit. So anyway, like I literally feel like I'm speaking a different language when it comes to a lot of this stuff. People are talking about all these things like everybody's you pushed out and da 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 da, and it's like fucking just use some common sense, like language. You can talk about far out concepts and still use common sense everyday language. We don't have to seem like we're this like, I'm in my own consciousness, this certain state, and everything's, my 3D doesn't reflect it. What the fuck? Bizarre. I never have understood why people in current times talk about these manifesting and law of attraction, let alone spiritual concepts in this way. And I'm more baffled by like each month. And I compare that to The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, which I have right here in the car for my car vids about these helpful pointers. And it's like Joseph Murphy, like this intelligent commenter said the other day, he sounds like your grandfather, like your wise old grandfather. It's like he's using ordinary language. He's saying very far out stuff, but he's saying it in a way that is relatable. It's like it's like you have like a nice dish, right? Like you make yourself, you cook something nice, and then you put all these random ass seasonings on it and ruin it. That's what people talking about this stuff seems like to me a lot of the time, when I hear this stuff on YouTube. And I was going to do the pointers today. We're not going to get to it. We're already over 4 minutes into this video. But I had, I guess you could call it an insight, a revelation. No, more like an insight this weekend, about something that Kuwait said. And one of the few teachers I've come across on YouTube, at least, and listen, it's not like I know every teacher. It's not like I'm looking, what's this teacher doing? I don't fucking know most of the teachers. Don't get me wrong, or like what they're doing, I'm saying. But one of the few teachers who actually has said something about Neville's work that actually is like extremely relevant and also ties into Kuwait. And that person, everybody's favorite YouTuber, Sammy Ingram. Sammy, I've mentioned her several times recently. Sammy says some truly brilliant fucking things about Neville and about the law of attraction and about manifesting. And as I mentioned recently, it ties in directly with Kuwait. If you want to see a much less amped, much less car video version of what I'm talking about, I'm going to link above and below to a podcast episode I did back in May called Active Affirming, where I talk calmly, not like this, about like the connection between like Kuwait and Sammy, what Sammy's talking about. But I was thinking about it again this weekend because I've been trying to implement some of the things that Sammy talks about in like actively affirming more in my own life. And I just really like it. I think it's very, very effective, especially when you feel stressed out. To give you an example, when my wife was in labor, we had, my wife had a relatively, there was a lot of anxiety and stress about her pregnancy, and she was in labor and, she was like dilated at whatever, 2 centimeters, and it wasn't going. And that whole time I was basically just doing the absolute method, just thinking of God or actively affirming to myself or whispering to myself, like, it's fine for hours. The doctor and nurses were like, well, she's not, the dilation is not big or whatever. We're going to have to do all this stuff. They started explaining all this stuff. I'm just actively affirming it's fine. This is good. Nothing's happening. It's good. It's fine. Or just thinking of God, my wife's getting pretty, upset, and she's obviously in physical pain because she's giving birth, trying to give birth in labor. So yeah, they're like, well, we're going to do this thing. Before we do this thing, we'll just check one more time to see what your dilation's at. And boom, she was fully dilated. And she gave birth to a healthy baby girl within literally 20 minutes after that. That's one example of how you can use active affirming, but there are so many examples. And the insight I had this weekend was I was thinking of Kuwait, my buddy Kuwait. And self-mastery to conscious autosuggestion has 1,000 great lines in it. But one that we've discussed recently, and I'm going to discuss it again, this is one of the better passages in the book, I think. Somebody asked Emil Coué, how can we realize what we desire? And Coué says, by repeating often what you desire. For instance, I am gaining poise, and you will. My memory improves, and it certainly will improve. I am able to control myself absolutely, and there is no question but that you will. If you tell yourself the contrary, it's the contrary which is going to happen. What you tell yourself persistently and very rapidly comes to pass, provided, of course, that it is something natural. In my opinion, this is the underlying basis of most of these law of attraction teachings. Psychologically, what you tell yourself, what you're thinking persistently and quickly comes to pass. At least most of the time, at least on some kind of energetic level, in the very least. Provided, of course, that it is something natural. Now, a lot of people, including I think Sammy, would say, well, it doesn't have to be natural. There's not there's no laws. I mean, that's a totally different conversation, right? I'm not saying I agree with Sammy with everything she says whatsoever. I don't expect you to agree with most of the stuff I say, perhaps. The point is, find the small amount of stuff that works for you and utilize it. And what Sammy is saying here, what Coué is saying, aligns with what Sammy is saying so well. And I'm just realizing and noticing it more and more. The problem is that we say something like, I'm getting better and better, I'm getting healthier and healthier. I'm becoming more and more attractive. I'm becoming wealthier and wealthier. Whatever we are saying to ourselves positively, whatever we're affirming. And by affirming, I mean thinking. So it's not like it's like a set affirmation necessarily. It's what you're actively thinking to yourself. We think the positive thing, and then we tell ourselves a bunch of stuff to the contrary. We deny it the rest of the day. A criticism you can make of Coué, who, as you all know, is by far my favorite law of attraction teacher, is that he was too passive, and when he said just to do autosuggestion, in like a passive manner a few times a day, one could easily argue that's not enough. If you have intrusive thoughts that are telling you the contrary of what you want. And that is where advice like Sammy's is so brilliant, because she basically says you neutralize this intrusive thinking by just constantly stating to yourself the positive thing, because the mind cannot think two things at once. It can only think one thing at once. And so what you tell yourself persistently and very rapidly comes to pass, provided it's at all natural. So if you're just constantly thinking that I'm getting better and better, I'm getting better and better, I'm getting better and better, all this stuff can be happening in your external world, but you're going to be less affected by it and become less and less affected by it because you're telling yourself constantly, I'm getting better and better, I'm getting better and better. And you're aware when these negative thoughts come in, no, you're not, this is crazy, what you're doing is nuts, all this shit is happening, things are actually getting worse, things aren't getting better. You're telling yourself, I'm getting better and better, I'm getting better and better, I'm getting better and better. You fill your mind with positive affirmations, positive statements, positive thinking like that. If you just keep on doing that, and it's laborious, you are actively doing this. This is not easy. But if you do this, if you fill your mind with a thought, a positive thought, and you do it, and it can just be for like a few hours even, and you can do it for a few days or longer. And if you just work on filling your mind with more and more positive thoughts when you're in difficult situations or just in general, you are going to see more positive stuff in your life. So this is like huge. And we did not get to Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, helpful pointers. Maybe next time. But of all of Coué's lines, this is one of the most important. What you tell yourself persistently and very rapidly comes to pass. Provided, of course, that's something natural. Every day and every way, I'm getting better and better. All right, have a good one.